A realistic 16:9 scene depicting the early 17th century, with a dramatic landscape of a European port city. In the foreground, a busy harbor filled with ships of various sizes, sails billowing, capturing the spirit of global trade. Medieval and early modern architecture line the waterfront, with a mixture of stone forts, timber houses, and bustling marketplaces. The sky is dynamic, with a mix of stormy clouds and sunlight illuminating the scene, symbolizing change and conflict. In the background, a distant view of land with small villages and emerging towns along the coast. A subtle hint of European landscapes with rolling hills and waterways under a moody, realistic atmosphere. A realistic scene depicting a bustling 17th-century port city under a cloudy sky, filled with busy docks and ships. Focus on a fleet of old-fashioned, robustly detailed flights loaded with cargo, including spices, silk, and silver, docked at the quay. Ancient warehouses, intricate sailing ships, and merchants exchanging goods create a lively atmosphere. The architecture features Dutch-style buildings with large windows and ornate details. In the background, a vibrant marketplace and ships sailing away. Emphasize the grandeur and atmosphere of Amsterdam's thriving trade hub during the age of exploration, with warm, natural lighting, detailed textures, and a realistic style, aspect ratio 16:9. A realistic 16:9 scene depicting a historical Dutch setting during the Golden Age, featuring a bustling marketplace with merchant ships docked in the background, detailed wooden buildings with traditional Dutch architecture, merchants and traders actively engaging in commerce, vibrant tulip flowers prominently displayed in the foreground, rich textures of fabrics, coins, and trade goods, subtle reflections on water, subdued natural lighting emphasizing a contemplative atmosphere, historical attire reflecting Calvinist influence, realistic colors and shadows, capturing a moment of financial and cultural significance in a meticulously detailed environment. A highly detailed, hyper-realistic image of an exotic flower arriving from the east, inspired by Ottoman gardens. The flower features petals in vibrant, impossible colors, showcasing intricate patterns and delicate textures. The scene emphasizes the flower's rarity and beauty, set against a lush, historical garden backdrop with subtle hints of Ottoman architecture in the distance. Soft, natural lighting highlights the vivid colors and fine details of the petals, with a focus on realism. The composition conveys a sense of luxury and exclusivity, capturing the flower as a symbol of status and artistic elegance, all within a 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic scene depicting a historic tulip market in 17th-century Dutch society, focusing on vibrant, rare, broken tulips with unpredictable, color-breaking patterns on petals. The setting shows market stalls with elegant Dutch merchants in period attire, showcasing and trading these unique flowers. Soft natural lighting highlights the intricate, unpredictable petal designs, emphasizing rarity and exclusivity. Subtle background details include traditional Dutch architecture and a hint of bustling market activity. The atmosphere captures a sense of anticipation and value, illustrating the beginning of tulip mania, with an emphasis on realistic textures, rich colors, and historical accuracy in a 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic scene depicting a maritime trade port at sunset, with large ships docked, warehouses, and cargo cranes in the foreground. In the background, a bustling marketplace with traders, sailors, and merchants engaged in commerce. The atmosphere contrasts the tangible solidity of ships and goods with fleeting, ephemeral elements like paper money or stock certificates floating in the air. Elegant old aristocratic figures observing the scene with disdain, contrasted with younger, more dynamic traders and sailors exuding confidence and vitality. Warm, golden light reflecting on the water and structures, emphasizing the tension between tradition and change. Wide 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic scene set in a lush greenhouse and quiet study, blending detailed botanical elements with vintage European decor. Incorporate vibrant, rare tulips, especially Semper Augustus, with intricately textured petals and lush green foliage. Show warm, natural lighting filtering through glass panes, highlighting the vivid colors of the flowers. Include subtly aged wooden furniture, plants in terracotta pots, and shelves lined with books and gardening tools. Outside the greenhouse, hint at a bustling port town scene in the distance with market stalls, sailors, and lively street life, capturing the contrast between serenity and commerce. Emphasize rich textures, balanced composition, and a harmonious blend of nature and human activity, with a natural, realistic style. A realistic scene depicting a historic winter market in 1636, with a viceroy bulb prominently displayed on a wooden stall surrounded by goods like sacks of wheat and rye, fat oxen and swine in the background, sheep grazing nearby, barrels of wine and beer, wheels of butter and cheese, and vintage clothing and silverware arranged on the stall. The setting shows a snowy landscape with merchants and villagers in period attire engaging in commerce. Warm, earthy tones with detailed textures highlight the historical atmosphere, capturing the mood of trade as a symbolic act. The composition emphasizes the exchange of physical items for an intangible idea, blending realism with subtle symbolic elements. Aspect ratio 16:9. A realistic 16:9 scene depicting a historic celebration in a vibrant city square at sunset, with joyful crowds gathered around a monument symbolizing victory, flags waving, confetti in the air, early 18th century architecture in the background, warm golden lighting illuminating smiling faces, detailed clothing reflecting the period, lively atmosphere with people embracing, some raising their hands or holding banners, lush trees around the square, realistic textures and shadows, capturing a moment of national pride and triumph. Realistic scene of a bustling 17th century European tavern interior, converted into a makeshift stock exchange, filled with men in period clothing, smoking pipes and drinking beer. The atmosphere is tense and chaotic, with men exchanging scrawled papers representing contracts, some fluttering mid-air. Inside, smoke clouds and warm lighting create a hazy ambience. Wooden beams and rustic furniture emphasize historical authenticity. The setting captures the feverish excitement of trading futures, with a focus on detailed facial expressions and gestures, conveying a sense of urgency and obsession. Shot in 16:9 aspect ratio. A highly detailed realistic scene of a bustling 17th century Dutch port city, depicting windmills on the horizon and traditional wooden ships docked along the quay. In the foreground, merchants in period clothing engaged in lively trading, with some inspecting tulip bulbs wrapped in cloth. Market stalls filled with vibrant tulips and other flowers, with barrels and sacks nearby. The architecture features classic Dutch gabled houses with intricate facades. The sky is partly cloudy with soft sunlight illuminating the scene, reflecting a prosperous, historic atmosphere. Rendered in a realistic style with rich textures, warm tones, and depth to convey the era's economic fervor surrounding the tulip trade. Aspect ratio 16:9. Realism, 16:9 aspect ratio, a detailed scene illustrating hubris as the national ideology, Dutch explorers and financiers in the 17th century, dressed in period clothing, standing proudly atop a grand port with ships in the background conquering the oceans, a lush garden with exotic flowers, some transforming into glowing, valuable assets held by confident Dutch figures. Symbolic elements of financial power, such as charts or gold, subtly integrated into the scene, a mix of Dutch colonial architecture and oceanic imagery emphasizing dominance over nature and wealth, mood of triumph and confidence, realistic style, highly detailed, vibrant colors. A realistic scene illustrating casual but tense business negotiations in a bustling tavern, featuring diverse individuals, nameless brokers, newly wealthy weavers, cheerful tavern keepers, all engaged in animated discussions around wooden tables. The background shows a lively interior with warm lighting, barrels, and rustic decor. The atmosphere hints at a mix of confidence and underlying risk, with expressions that suggest both optimism and uncertainty. Focus on detailed facial expressions, body language, and textures, clothing, wood, and fabric, to emphasize the human drama of fleeting luck and mistaken belief in ongoing growth, capturing a moment of high stakes in a vivid, realistic style. Aspect ratio 16:9. A highly detailed realistic scene illustrating a bustling financial district at sunset, with a large modern stock exchange building in the background, glass reflections, and a crowd of people in business attire on the streets. In the foreground, a surreal, exaggerated depiction of a marketplace filled with vibrant tulips, oversized and floating in midair, with traders gesturing passionately around them. Some traders hold futuristic digital screens displaying fluctuating numbers and graphs, emphasizing the absurdity and complexity of the financial instruments. The atmosphere exudes a blend of chaos, fascination, and absurdity, capturing a surreal yet realistic style with meticulous attention to detail, all within a 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic scene depicting 17th-century Amsterdam during the harsh winter of 1637, with frozen canals and crowded taverns glowing with warm light. Emphasize a lively, bustling atmosphere with townspeople dressed in period clothing, some gathered near the canal edges, others inside taverns with visible mugs and jovial expressions. Include details such as cobblestone streets, wooden boats frozen in place, and market stalls with scarce goods. Capture the stark contrast between the freezing outdoor environment and the warmth inside taverns. Use a natural color palette with rich browns, icy blues, and warm amber lighting, in a 16:9 aspect ratio. Focus on realism and historical accuracy. A realistic scene of a bustling marketplace at dusk with vibrant, colorful stalls filled with flowers and plants, people in modern casual clothing browsing and exchanging goods, a sense of urgency and excitement in the atmosphere, soft evening light casting warm glows and long shadows, subtle hints of spring with budding branches and fresh greenery, detailed textures on flowers, clothing, and market items. A slightly chaotic but energetic vibe, capturing a moment of anticipation and commerce. All in a naturalistic style with rich, lifelike colors, aspect ratio 16:9. A realistic scene with a tense atmosphere, depicting a narrow alleyway at dusk, shadows lengthening as a hidden trap is about to spring shut. The environment shows cracked brick walls, scattered debris, and subtle details like a partially open wooden door and broken wires hanging. Soft evening light illuminates the scene, emphasizing a sense of impending danger. The perspective is level, capturing the alley's depth and the looming moment. Use warm and cool tones to enhance the realism, with precise textures on surfaces, realistic shadows, and atmospheric details conveying suspense without any text or explicit intimacy. Aspect ratio 16:9. A realistic scene depicting a quiet, contemplative moment in a cityscape during twilight. The sky is overcast with thick, muted clouds, casting a somber, subdued light over empty streets and modern buildings. In the foreground, a solitary person stands still, their posture reflective and thoughtful, gazing into the distance. The environment is calm but tense, with subtle shadows and soft lighting emphasizing the mood of introspection and uncertainty. No text, no symbols, just a realistic depiction of a moment of silent pause, capturing the emotional weight of a question about the end amidst an urban setting. Aspect ratio 16:9. A realistic scene of Harlem on February 3, 1637, during a bustling tulip auction. The auction hall is crowded with merchants and buyers, rich wooden paneling and high ceilings visible. Bidders are engaged, some raising their hands, others watching intently. The auctioneer stands at the podium with a gavel, mid-slam, with a commanding presence. The atmosphere is tense as the bidding stalls at a single lot, the crowd's faces show anticipation and surprise. Warm, natural lighting illuminates the scene, highlighting period-appropriate clothing, detailed textures of fabrics and wood. Captured in a 16:9 aspect ratio, in realistic style. A realistic scene set on a frozen canal at dusk, depicting a crowd of people in period clothing reacting with shock and panic, some clutching paper notes or cash, others whispering nervously. The atmosphere is tense, with expressions of disbelief and anxiety. The cold environment is emphasized by visible breath, frosted surfaces, and bundled-up figures. The background shows tightly packed buildings with dim, moody lighting. The overall tone conveys a sudden shift from stability to chaos, capturing the emotional impact of a financial collapse in a historic setting, with a focus on human expressions and the icy landscape. Aspect ratio 16:9. A realistic 16:9 scene depicting a crowded urban square at dawn, with diverse people including aristocrats in fine clothing and everyday workers like cobblers, all showing expressions of shock, despair, and confusion. The background features historic buildings and a large, wilted flower symbol fading into the morning fog, symbolizing lost pride and downfall. The atmosphere is tense, with a mix of ornate and simple attire, capturing a moment of economic collapse and emotional upheaval. Soft yet somber lighting emphasizes the mood of loss and humiliation, with detailed textures on clothing and surroundings reflecting realism. A realistic scene depicting spring awakening in a European market town, with early blooming flowers, muddy soil from recent digging, and people dressed in early 20th century clothing exchanging bulbs and commodities. The background features traditional buildings, with hints of nature emerging after winter, capturing a moment of economic tension as vendors and buyers discuss recent market prices. The lighting is soft, natural, emphasizing the contrast between the freshness of spring and the somber mood of economic uncertainty. The atmosphere is a blend of anticipation and skepticism, illustrating human intervention in natural and commercial cycles. Render in 16:9 aspect ratio. A highly detailed, realistic 16:9 scene illustrating a tense economic crisis in a modern city. The foreground features a group of distressed businesspeople in formal attire, arguing and holding paper contracts, with visible signs of frustration. Behind them, a flooded courthouse lobby crowded with officials and protesters, emphasizing legal chaos. In the background, skyscrapers show signs of neglect, some windows broken, dark clouds looming overhead. The street is lined with abandoned cars, and people walking hurriedly with worried expressions. The overall mood is tense and somber, capturing a sense of societal breakdown and economic despair, rendered in realistic style with intricate detail, moody lighting, and dramatic shadows. A realistic 16:9 scene depicting a fractured society, with people in modern clothing showing varied emotions, some desperate, others angry and betrayed. The environment is tense, with broken urban elements like shattered windows, torn posters, and abandoned streets. Contrast between affluent individuals holding onto what remains and distressed, vanishing figures representing the downtrodden. Dull, muted lighting emphasizes the mood of despair and mutual recrimination. The background features a cityscape in decay, with cracked buildings and overcast skies. The overall composition captures a poignant moment of societal collapse, emphasizing emotional intensity and realism. A panoramic landscape depicting a modern city skyline at dawn, with tall glass buildings reflecting the early morning light, surrounded by imagery symbolizing a financial and psychological crisis, crumpled banknotes scattered on cracked pavement, a shattered mirror reflecting the city's silhouette, and a solitary figure standing amidst the chaos, gazing contemplatively. The scene emphasizes realism, with detailed textures, dramatic lighting, and a somber mood. The colors are muted earth tones with hints of cold blue and gray, capturing a sense of disillusionment and introspection. No text or explicit content, strictly a realistic depiction, aspect ratio 16:9. A dramatic, highly detailed realistic scene of a vast, dark abyss opening in a rugged landscape under stormy skies, with jagged rocky edges and swirling shadows. At the bottom, a broken flower with wilted petals and jagged edges lies among scattered shards of glass and broken objects, symbolizing shattered dreams. The scene conveys a sense of deep loss and broken illusions, with subtle hints of chaos and unrest in the environment. The colors are dark and moody, with deep blues, blacks, and muted earth tones. The lighting emphasizes shadows and highlights, creating a sense of depth and drama, capturing a powerful moment of symbolic destruction. Aspect ratio 16:9. Style, realism. A detailed realistic scene depicting a tense historical moment with a focus on a 17th century Dutch setting. show a grand, ornate courtroom in the style of Dutch Golden Age architecture, with tall windows, wooden paneling, and intricate details. In the center, a judge in period attire presides over tables filled with merchants and traders, their expressions a mix of anxiety and relief. Nearby, a display of tulip bulbs and contracts emphasizes the context of economic turmoil. The lighting is warm but subdued, highlighting shadows and textures. The background hints at a bustling Dutch cityscape through large windows, with ships docked outside. The scene captures the gravity and conflicted atmosphere of a pivotal economic decision, realistic style, ratio 16:9. A realistic 16:9 scene portraying a dystopian financial landscape, with a crumbling stock market display showing plummeting graphs, stressed and defeated businessmen in suits, some looking at screens with despair, a cold, gray city skyline in the background under overcast skies, broken financial papers floating in the wind, subtle hints of a sense of loss and betrayal, muted color palette emphasizing somber mood. No text or human identifiers, detailed textures of damaged technology and urban decay, capturing the desolation of economic collapse. A realistic scene depicting a historic European port city with tall, ornate buildings and bustling docks. The sky is overcast, casting a somber, muted light over the scene. Sailing ships with intricate rigging docked along wooden piers, merchants and townspeople in period attire moving about, barrels and goods visible. The atmosphere conveys a sense of underlying tension and reflection, with a focus on historic architecture and maritime activity. The overall tone is introspective, capturing the contrast between prosperity and underlying shame. 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic scene depicting a historic financial frenzy, with a crowd of diverse people in period clothing gathered around a giant, chaotic stock exchange display showing rapid fluctuations, amidst towering stacks of gold coins and overflowing money bags. The background features a bustling cityscape with classical architectural elements, emphasizing the early 20th century industrial era. Dramatic lighting highlights the excitement and tension, with some individuals celebrating wildly while others look anxious or contemplative. The scene captures the intense atmosphere of a speculative bubble bursting, with vivid details of hurried gestures and vibrant colors, all set within a 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic scene depicting a historical financial ledger open on a wooden desk, filled with detailed handwritten entries and calculations, with a focus on the era of tulip mania. Surrounding the ledger are antique quill pens, ink bottles, and scattered tulip petals, some vibrant red, contrasting with the subdued tones of the desk and background. Warm, soft lighting highlights the textures of the paper and wood, emphasizing a mood of tension and obsession. The composition captures a blend of meticulous record-keeping and the chaos of irrational greed, with subtle hints of historical ambience. Aspect ratio 16:9. A highly detailed realistic scene depicting a modern urban setting with a bustling financial district during daytime, skyscrapers with reflective glass facades, busy streets filled with diverse people wearing contemporary clothing, digital screens displaying stock market and cryptocurrency graphs, subtly blending elements of Dutch winter nostalgia through muted color tones, overcast sky, and a faint echo of historical winter landscapes in the architecture and atmosphere, in a 16:9 aspect ratio. A realistic 16:9 scene illustrating the concept of human folly through tulip mania, with a detailed vintage market setting showing an array of vibrant tulip flowers on display, bustling traders in period clothing exchanging goods, ornate architecture in the background reminiscent of the Dutch Golden Age, subtle symbols of wealth and greed such as gold coins and credit notes, warm natural lighting emphasizing rich textures and colors, capturing the essence of human nature and temptation, with a mood that blends nostalgia and reflection, all elements crafted with meticulous detail in a realism style. A realistic scene capturing a crowd of diverse people gathered outdoors, gazing thoughtfully at a historical ledger book, with subtle expressions of hope and curiosity, under a cloudy sky with soft natural lighting. The background hints at an old city square with classical architecture, including stone buildings and arches. The atmosphere is contemplative and timeless, emphasizing human interaction with history and the pursuit of wealth. The scene is detailed with natural skin tones, textured clothing in earthy and muted colors, and realistic shadows. Composition 16:9, style of high-resolution realism, no text or modern distractions.